Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another round of Mind Your Puckin' Business with your host, Jeffrey Kruntzman.
Thank you, Dougie Sticks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to us, coming to you from the beautiful studios of Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is the Mind Your Puckin' Business podcast, brought to you, of course, by our good friends at the Bamboozled Project. This is episode number 97, Noventa y Siete. Believe it or not, if you follow us, this is episode you've listened to us 97 times.
Yeah.
Give you guys credit.
Wow, we.
So that, like I said, is Noventa y Siete on the Spanish dial. You can send your questions at any time to mypbshow@gmail.com. You can DM us your questions. We're actually going to take a handful of your DM'd questions that you sent us this week. Today, so as I say, we do answer the questions, so we're going to answer some of them today. Let's go back to the Bamboozle Project website, which I missed across the screen a minute ago. Again, check out the Bamboozle Project. That's thebamboozleproject.com. Use our 25% off promo code MYPB, and I can assure you that when you hear on the news that companies are behind in shipping stuff out for the holidays, that does not apply to the Bamboozle Project. They are rocket fast. They really are. They do some good stuff there, and we appreciate them stocking our gear, getting it back in stock when it went out, and we should be good to go.
Absolutely.
How are
Don't
you?
forget to use that promo code.
Yes. The promo code basically erases shipping. So you can look at it two ways. You can say, I'm going to take 25% off the price, or I'm going to take the promo code and just basically get free shipping. Either way, it's a win.
Yeah, you're winning either way.
You can't lose in that. So the Rangers last week, I kind of felt, so I left here when we were on Tuesday last week. I left here, and immediately before I was out of the parking lot, I had a text message that I was too hard on my take that day was too hard on the Rangers, that I panicking more than I should, yada, yada, yada. So the person, and I won't give credit to this person because I'll never hear the end of it, but the person that said that, I think, has a little bit more of justification because the Rangers have had a really good week. They went out west. They played a Vegas team last Wednesday and won, and played really well, actually. The game was 1-1 going into the third period, and in the third period, they just erupted for 4 goals, 3 of which I believe were in 2 minutes and 4 seconds or something like that, and played really well versus a Vegas team to get a win on the road. Now, 2 things I want to point out in that game. One is an obvious thing, and the second, you're going to sit here and say, wow, maybe there's something there. The first was that Igor played very well. No surprise in that. Igor plays well. The Rangers win. That's usually the recipe. Just like when you bake for us here in the studios, you have stuff that you put in the recipe. The recipe for the Rangers is, you know what? If Igor plays well, they have a good chance to win. But here's the second thing I want to mention. In that game, Alexis Lafreniere, Capo Caco, and Filipino all scored goals. That is very, very important. Here on this specific podcast and other Ranger podcasts that we support say the same thing. We really all echo the same overall message here every week, which is play the damn kids more, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to take one game and say, you see, it happened in one game, because there's 81 other games at the end of the game last Wednesday. But I do think you have to look at it and say, here was a recipe. You beat a good team on the road, 3 time zones away. You traveled out west, which is not easy to do. And you beat this team with a recipe of each of your 3 kids scoring, plus Igor Shesterkin playing well, and you win 5-1. I don't know. Again, I don't want to make
5-1.
Yeah, I don't want to make a huge deal of it.
No, we got to.
Because it's one game. No, I can't. Because like I said, there's 81 other ones. But I do think it's it should be something that is looked at as interesting how that worked out. Now, 2 nights later, they go to Colorado. Now, some people are going to sit here and tell you, well, Colorado, they won the cup last year. They're not playing that great. That's not true. They still have a winning record. They're still the defending Stanley Cup champs. And Colorado is up for this game because Gorgiev's in net, who used to play here. So you have Alexander Gorgiev, who you're playing against, is going to be up for the game. You still have Makar. You still have all these guys out there that are really good, and they're still scoring, Colorado. And the Rangers, again, Igor played well, and they won in a shootout. So now you take last Monday at home versus the Blues. You won. You went Wednesday out west to Vegas, Sin City, which, by the way, I think on a personal note, I used to always say that I would want to, if I could see the Rangers play anywhere that's not MSG, because I've seen that enough in my life, I would want to go to Canada, probably Montreal, right? Like the mecca of hockey.
Yeah.
I think now, like, I'd rather go see them play in Vegas. I was thinking that when I was watching that game. Like, I don't know now, like, if I had a bucket list, like, where do I want to see the Rangers play? It would be there. So they go to Vegas and win. They go to Colorado and win. They come home last night. And they play the Devils. Now, yesterday, I had, including Paul Farrington, who's on the show a lot to talk football, was texting me, "Are you guys ready for us tonight?" Yada, yada, yada. And my response to every Devil fan that wanted to talk to me yesterday about the game was, look, the Rangers are playing better. It will be a good test for them, right? I don't know if they'll win or lose. I mean, who knows? But it'll be a good test because the Devils are playing lights out. What you like and don't like last night? Did we lose?
No.
We're good. Okay, I was going to say what you like and dislike last night is this. You dislike the start. They're down 2-0 within 5 minutes. Again, the Rangers have had some trouble here with home ice. But what you like is that they battled back for all the problems and flack that I've given them and other people have, that they're blowing 2-goal leads at home. Here they're in a situation last night and they are down 2 and find a way to come back and win. Now, couple things about this game. The Rangers are up 3-1. Jack Hughes has a penalty shot. Igor Shesterkin with a huge stop. Now, I'm not there will be some people, and as a matter of fact, one of them who's writing in right now, have seen me play hockey, right? I play hockey. I ref hockey. I like to talk about hockey. But let me just say something. I'm not good at hockey, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you're good at hockey. I don't know for what Jack Hughes was doing on this penalty shot attempt when he came in so far wide left. I've never understood that. Igor stood tall and stopped the shot. Now, here's the thing about this. If they score, it's 4-1, it's a much different game. Yeah. The Rangers, they get a goal on a deflection by Trocheck, and then 5 seconds later, literally right off the faceoff, with 5 kids on the ice, Kako, Hedel, Lafreniere, Keandre Miller, and the fifth defenseman is escaping me, who was with him. Probably was Fox or Lindgren, if I had to think off the top of my head. Had all 5 kids on the ice and scored to tie the game at 3. The game goes into overtime. Now, I was very this game, if I'm being honest, and I feel bad for my wife and kids who sat through overtime with me watching this last night. Adam Fox turned the puck over, and the Rangers could not get possession back at all. Okay, they just couldn't get possession for a minute and a half. It was extraordinarily frustrating. However, on a breakout, they got the puck came out of the zone. Panarin came down the boards, found Hedel, the overtime winner. Thank you. Chris is writing in if we can put up Schneider. Schneider was the 5th defenseman on. So you had Schneider, Keandre Miller, Lafreniere, Kako, and Hedel on ice for the tying goal. Again, I'm sensing a theme here, right? I don't know about you, but like we're building up here to a theme today. I'm not saying we're making a debate, but we're making a theme. So the Rangers now have won 4 in a row, which obviously you'll like. You're very happy with it. So here's the question that came in last night twice. I saw it within like 5 minutes of the game being over. I don't know if you saw it. Is it all fixed, right? Are we back to where we should be? Are the problems of November and early December, are they a thing of the past? What is the answer?
We can't be complacent. We can't, you can't just settle. We had a nice little streak, but now it's time to keep it going and don't look back.
Yes. And Chris brings up a good point, as I see he just wrote it in. All 5 of those players that I just mentioned, Keandre Miller, Schneider, Kako, Lafreniere, and Hedel, are all first-round picks. So it's pretty interesting. Again, all building up to the theme. Chris is with us apparently today on where we're trying to go. So is it all fixed? Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. In the last week, in the 4 games they won, Igor Shesterkin started all 4. Can Igor Shesterkin start every game the remaining rest of the way? The answer is obviously, Dougie, no.
Wait, say that again?
Can Igor Shesterkin start every game the rest of the season?
No, he's got to take a couple breaks.
He's got to take a couple breaks, right? So, but what you like to see and what shows signs that maybe it's fixed, because I can make the argument it's fixed. I can make the argument it's not. Only time's going to give us the correct answer. But what I can tell you is this. The Rangers are going to go and this is not rocket science, what I'm about to say, as far as Igor Shesterkin is going to take them.
Yeah.
I can complain on this show every week. Jimmy VC that, Filipino that, Lafreniere not playing enough time, whatever it may be. If the goalie in Shesterkin is not playing well, all of those other arguments are entirely irrelevant. It means nothing. It really does. So you're encouraged that the one thing you need to have happen, if it is going to be fixed, is that Igor Shesterkin has been playing really well in the last week. And hopefully, in turn, he has found his game. Now, I still think offensively there's things to be addressed. Now, Chris, who I mentioned is following along here on the live feed, is going to love what I'm about to say. Chris had sent last week something I thought very interesting. I posted it on a Ranger site that I own, and it went like people went nuts for it. I was like, whoa. Alexis Lafreniere, since he has been here, and I am actually coincidentally wearing my Alexis Play the Goal Song shirt, which is just total coincidence. But since he has been here, thank you. It's WeBleedBlue.com. We promote that website for Ranger gear and apparel, WeBleedBlue.com. But since Alexis Lafreniere has been here, he has been the Rangers' leading scorer on 5-on-5, which is amazing if you think about it.
Because he's not getting as much time as everybody else.
You got it. Look at that. Our own hockey aficionado picked up
the most wise and smartest hockey aficionado there is.
Picked up on it in 2 seconds. And again, we don't rehearse stuff, what we're going to say.
Yeah. And I'm not no aficionado, so if I can get it.
So if Alexis Lafreniere, and I don't want to get into the screaming about the lines because I'm going to get into a quote that Gerard Gallant said after the game last night. But if we're going to sit here and get into lines again, and with Alexis Lafreniere, here's your player who's been leading the team in goals on 5-on-5 play since he's been here for 3 years now. How is he still playing on the third line? Now, the kids line, right? Last night, big goal. They each did really well last week in Vegas. Maybe there's something to be said that Lafreniere shouldn't move up, but he should be given more ice time, whatever line he's on, and maybe that's the kids line. That's a fair argument. I don't personally agree with it, but I can understand the argument. So I just the thing that concerns me, to go back to this are they fixed question, is this whole line shuffling and still trying to find the right chemistry. So last night after the game, I've been very critical, particularly last week, and I think a couple shows before this. I have been extremely critical of Gerard Gallant this year, and the fact that we have not been a consistent with the line. So here's what he said last night. And apparently he knows that it's not just me clearly saying it, that it's been really rumblings of Ranger fans everywhere. Quote, I changed the lines too much. I wasn't happy, and I just wanted to see what would happen. I thought it went better. I'm tired of changing the lines. I really am. You've got to do something when you're a coach. I want the lines to stay the same, but I didn't like what I was seeing. End quote. Now, here's another quote from last night from him. Quote, I've told you how many times now I want to keep the lines the same. I want to let them go and give them a chance, but I was not liking what I was seeing. End quote.
So he is basically doesn't want to admit he was wrong, and he's trying to frame it in a way that he's right.
Well, I think it's this, actually. I don't think you're far off, but here's my take on it. He understands from this quote, this line shuffling is absurd. And he's basically saying, this is not what I want to do. However, as a coach, if I don't like what lines I have at that current time are all out there, I've got to make a change and do something, which he's right? Yeah. If you're a coach, you're not going to sit there and say, well, I don't like these lines, but they're not producing, but I don't want to change them up. I want to keep them consistent. So it's still an issue for this team in finding the right mix here. Now, I want to bring up something as well, and that we brought up a lot, that I have no idea where this organization is going with, and that is Vitaly Kravtsov, who is just not even in the lineup anymore. If you go back, and you won't remember this, because this was really when you and I started doing this podcast. We're like 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years ago with this. Vitaly Kravtsov left. I don't know. Do you remember the story, Doug? Like, he left. He didn't like where he was going. The Rangers last year, in the beginning of the season, asked him to go to Hartford, their minor league affiliate, to go down for quote unquote a conditioning stint. Vitaly Kravtsov said, "Screw you guys. I'm going home. I'm going to Russia." And it looked like at that time that Vitaly Kravtsov would never put on a Ranger jersey again, and the Rangers would have to try and deal him for something, which at that point in time they would have been able to do. Well, because everything you can't tell what's going to happen. End of the season comes, Kravtsov comes to training camp and is back, which surprised a lot of people because we all thought, you know what, he never would be back. But it was encouraging because when he was drafted 9th overall in the draft, and let's see, this was 2018, I believe, and he was also rated at that time by a lot of people as the best prospect outside of North America, right? So you want that in your poker card collection, right? You want that as your chip. So he comes back and he's given the chance, but now he's not even playing. I don't understand if you're not going to play him as the organization, if Chris Drury and Gerard Gallant and whoever else is in the front office there is going to sit here and say he's not going to play, he's just not a part of our short-term plan and he's not a part of our long-term plans. The longer he sits here and isn't playing, the value, the trade value that you will get for him in the market is only going down. So I don't know. To me, it's either you're going to play him or you're going to sit here and deal him now where you're going to get a better value than if you just sit on him for a year. I don't understand the organization's plan or blueprint for Vitaly Kravtsov. I have no idea what they're doing. And Gallant, in typical Gallant fashion, he doesn't like to say a lot. He doesn't like to go into details as much as I think you would like him to, which is fine. He's entitled to that. That's the way he likes to do his business. But he'll just say, you know what? I just like the way other people are playing. But you can't tell me right now that some of these other people are playing above what we've all thought the ceiling is for Vitaly Kravtsov. And we haven't gotten a chance to see what the ceiling is. So something here is really off. There's some sort of miscommunication somewhere as to what is going on. So
maybe they don't want to set the precedent that if you cry and whine, you get your way.
I don't know. You know what? Like, it's very hard right now to tell what the organization is even thinking with Vitaly Kravtsov. They're not if you read into the situation, you can't decipher, hey, you know what? They're clearly trying to trade him, or they're clearly going to use him, or they're going to whatever their answer is. And I don't know what it is. Now, we'll put the comment that just came up because that is very true. Gerard Gallant wants veterans and not kids to play. We've said this forever. It's absolutely true. He would rather, and again, this is not my take, he would rather someone like Jimmy Vesey in the lineup than Vitaly Kravtsov. I know what I can get with Jimmy Vesey. He's been around the league forever. Matter of fact, he played for us for a couple seasons, 4 or 5 years ago. I know what I can get from Jimmy Vesey. But the ceiling for Vitaly Kravtsov, if he can hit it, is way above what I can get from Jimmy Vesey or other people. I don't want to pick on Jimmy Vesey unfairly. So, and you can see another great comment coming in. Kravtsov went back in the lineup, got moved up next game, produced, and then got taken out of the lineup, which is further point that this organization right now does not have a clue what they're doing with Vitaly Kravtsov. They really don't. He literally got put in the lineup, did well, moved up on the line and said, you know what, you're out. And no one and we never got a reason why. So just something to keep in mind going forward. So the Rangers have gotten themselves back into a playoff wildcard spot with the 8 points in the 4 games the last week. They now sit in the first wildcard spot, although sitting here and looking at playoff standings on December 13th, which is the day we're taping this show today, is not really the most wisest thing to do. The upcoming schedule will be interesting. The Rangers are home versus Toronto on Thursday night. Toronto is a very good team. If you almost want to play them in the playoffs because they seem to choke it away in the playoffs, but they play well. They're a speed team. The Rangers will be tested for sure on Thursday night. And then the schedule is interesting, and here's why. You have back-to-backs Saturday and Sunday versus 2 very bad teams. You're playing at Philly and at Chicago. So clearly, Halak will play one of those games. Which game he plays out of the 2, I don't know. I mean, I think it probably doesn't even matter. You should win them both right now if you're going to sit here and make the argument that this team is back and they've righted the ship. But from Chicago, they will go next Tuesday to Pittsburgh, which will be the first time they play the Penguins since the really good first round Game 7 overtime dramatic win where you jumped up out of your seat, Dougie Sticks, back in May. So, you know what? The schedule's tough. The schedule's tough in Toronto and Pittsburgh, but you got to get points when you're playing Philly and Chicago.
Absolutely.
So we shall see. So I got a thing over the weekend to just do a quick that we're not covering stuff around the league for whatever reason. So we're going to go around the league real quick. I don't want to focus a lot on the Metropolitan Division because we cover it with the Rangers, and I've said it here, and it's painful for me to say, the Devils at 21-5 and 44 points in 28 games is the story of the season in the entire league. Um, I I I said to someone this morning, I was dropping my son off at school, and I said to someone, a Devil fan who pulled up next to me, and he was upset about losing last night. And I said, you were 20, they're not a 20-5 team. They've been playing above their mind. They're going to come back to earth in some way, and they will, the Devils. But I think if you're a Devil fan, you've got to be elated with the start. The Penguins are coming on strong now in the division. Don't look now, but they're now 17-8, second in the division. The Hurricanes and the Rangers, third and fourth, are right where you would think they would be. And the Capitals have now won a bunch. They've won 4 in a row as well. And the Capitals, the thing that worries me about the Capitals is this. The Capitals have been doing this, and they've had a ton of injuries. A lot of the players that they have that have been injured are going to come back into the lineup. So that is a concern as well. The Atlantic Division, the Bruins at 22-4. The Devils story probably trumps them because you didn't expect it even more from the Devils. But the Bruins, you got to give credit. They didn't lose a home game at all until last week when they lost to Vegas at home. The Bruins hired Jim Montgomery in the offseason to be a coach. Everyone knows the story he had. He got fired and he got let go in Dallas because of personal issues. Good for him on his kind of redemption tour as a coach. Landed in a great spot in Boston, and they're playing well at 22-4. Toronto, like I said, they're coming into the Garden on Thursday night at 18-5, is playing well. The Atlantic Division, I'll tell you right now, is a very, very good division. You have the Bruins, you have the Maple Leafs, you have the Lightning. Obviously, we all know what the Lightning are capable of doing. They've been to the Cup the last 3 years. And the Red Wings, young and fast and playing well under their new head coach, the Atlantic Division is very good. The playoffs, when we get to that, in 5 months, the Atlantic Division bracket, if you will, is going to be very, very difficult to call because any of those teams can win. I mean, I can tell you right now, who's ever in the Atlantic Division in the playoffs can come out of that division and win.
Yeah.
The Western Conference, which we never cover on the show, I was thinking that when Rick Bowness, who was the coach of Dallas, so he got the job in the year of Corona. So he basically got the job the year that we all went to the NHL went to the bubble in Toronto. And Rick Bowness did a heck of a job there. He went to the Cup final with a team that wasn't good. He's just a good coach. He was really more of an assistant throughout his career. He got the job in Winnipeg in the offseason, and we probably should have saw this coming with Hellebuck still there, a decent goaltender, that the Jets were going to be pretty good, and they are. They're leading that division. They're leading the division, but they're tied in points with the Dallas Stars right now. The Minnesota Wild, obviously, they have a very good top line. They're playing well, and Colorado is sitting fourth in that division. Don't sleep on them at 14-10 either. So the Central Division as well is playing well. Now, the one division that is not, I would say, as impressive is out west in the Pacific Division. The Golden Knights, who we just talked about, the Rangers defeating last week out there at 20-9, leading it with 41 points. The Kraken are such a cool story, right? The second-year expansion. You all kind of expected last year they would be bad, and they were. But they're now 16-8 in second place in 35. And Dave Haxtell, the coach out there, who used to coach in Philly, and then before he coached there, he was a college coach at the University of North Dakota for many years, is doing a really good job with that team. And because that team, and I don't know if Chris is still listening, but because that team is doing so well, it is kind of taking away the spotlight of what the story would be, which is that their huge draft pick, Shane Wright, is not, I think he just scored his first goal last week, has not been playing well. So it's kind of like masked the problem of Shane Wright because the team is winning. And then the rest of that division, I really don't think is very good. The Oilers are good, but the rest of it is not. The Canucks are not very good. Neither are the Sharks or the Ducks. So some of the weaker teams right now across the league in the NHL sit in the Pacific Division.
Interesting.
Are you ready to? So I could give you a test.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if, just for argument's sake, or not argument's sake, just for fun, if the playoffs started today, okay, I looked at this last night after the Ranger game. If the playoffs started today, the first round would be the best matchup this whole area where we tape this podcast could have, would be the Rangers and the Devils in the first round.
Wow.
Again, that'll change a million times before now and then. And you would have the Bruins at, the Bruins would be playing the Islanders. So you actually would have Boston and the Islanders and the Rangers and Devils. I mean, that would be an awesome, both of those would be awesome series. But it'll change a million times. We'll see where this stuff shakes off. Do I think the Rangers have righted the ship? I think they've got it into calmer waters. How about I say that? Can I say
Okay.
that makes sense?
Yeah.
Right? The water's calmer now. It's not, we're out of the
Yeah.
waves, we're out of the
Rather
choppiness,
rapids.
but they still got to steer it. You still want to see consistency. And the next week, you're playing 2 out of 4 games are really not that good teams. There's your opportunity to do it. So
Absolutely. Got to win against bad teams.
you got to get 2 points against bad teams. I don't care if they're in overtime. You just got to get 2 points versus bad teams. That's what you got to do. So we'll see that this week. All right. Shifting gears to the NHL, the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
New York football, right? Man, like a month ago, around here, Giants playing well, Jets overachieving as well. Teams playing well, everything's going great. I don't know. So, all right, let's start with the Jets. They go to Buffalo the other day. I don't watch, because we usually have a ton of stuff going on Sundays. I don't watch a ton of Jets games or Giants games for that matter. But the Jet game that I did watch this past weekend, because it was on at the same time as the Giants, and as we'll get to, you turn that game off real quick. The Jet game was just boring. It's just like, it was like a total Buffalo style cold Sunday game, boring, not a lot going on. The Jets now are in danger of missing the playoffs. They have 4 games left. They sit, I believe, because New England won last night. If the playoffs started today, they are not in it, because New England obviously owns the tiebreaker over them. So the Jets, here's the positive for the Jets. What is the Jets' remaining schedule? The Jets will play this week at the Lions at home, and do not sleep on the Lions at all. But that is a game that the Jets can win, so they're home there. Then they're play
on fire.
But then they play next week at home against the Jaguars. That game you have to win, right? If you can't beat the Jaguars at home in a game you need to win, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs. Just say it like that, right? You can't do that. You're not making the playoffs. But then they go out west to play their old friend Geno Smith in Seattle, and they end the season in Miami against Tua. And what you don't want to have happen is you don't want that last game to be meaningful for the Dolphins. That's what you don't want.
No, you don't.
Because hopefully the Dolphins are wherever they're going to be. They've clinched the seed and the game means nothing, and they're resting people. But the Jets, man, other than the Jaguars, have a tough schedule to go. And I don't know that the Jets are going to make it now with everything the last couple of weeks.
You got to win the Jaguars game, and no one wants to play the Lions right now.
No, the Lions would not be, and Paul Farrington would back me up if he's listening with his Vikings, would want to be playing them. The Giant game. So I was telling our executive producer over here, Mr. Pat, that the other day I took my son on Sunday, because we didn't have anything. I took my son to a friend's house to watch the Giant game. We stopped and we got Heroes, like we kind of did like the Sunday football thing that we can never do because we're running all over the place. Which, by the way, do not go and get Heroes on a Sunday at 12:40. Like, what is going on? I mean, I understand the world is short-staffed, but like, what a nightmare. That was so stupid on my part. I'll take the blame for that. So we go and watch it. Now, my plan was originally, we'll stay for the whole game. I'll head out at 4:00 after the game. Tyler and I were out of there by like 2:15. It was as bad as you could get. That game, here's what I think it does, and it's we know I don't like talking good about the Devils, but I don't like doing this either. The Eagles are legitimate, right?
Ugh.
Why the Eagles are legitimate are a couple different reasons. One, Jalen Hurts could win the MVP. That's for sure. He definitely can. Offensively, they're really good, and I see you're not happy.
No.
They've got A.J. Brown. They've got Devonta Smith, who's very good as well. I had him last year in fantasy. So you've got those two guys. Miles Sanders can run the ball. They're really good defensively. They gave the Giants fits with their blitzes. Daniel Jones didn't know what was going on. And then the other thing that I would even throw in there is their special teams. So I tell you,
it didn't look like they were trying. Like, I had a front row seat of this massacre, and it didn't look like they were giving it their all.
Yeah. I want to just pull up a comment for a second. And as we're going back to hockey, but I want to give him credit. This Jim Behringer, who's been on the show with us before, one of our hockey guys, was saying, if people just listen to him, just have patience, and the Rangers turned it around like they did in Toronto, like Toronto did. Jim, I hope you're right. I really do. Jim's a Devil fan, so I know it's not easy for him to say that. So thanks, Jim, for listening. But the Eagles are legit, right? I mean, back to football, they are 100% legit. And the other thing with the NFC, the 49ers as well. I thought last week, as we'll get to the picks in a minute, I thought the Tampa +3 against San Francisco with their third-string quarterback was a weird line. They won by 28. So obviously I was off on that.
Yeah.
So San Francisco can play also. And the thing with San Francisco, McCaffrey's fitting right in that offense. He's catching touchdown passes. He's running these screens all over the place. And they also have Brandon Ayuk. Debo Samuel got hurt. I mean, they have some players out there, and their defense is good. So if the NFC comes down to the 49ers and Eagles, now we all in this studio will be cheering for the 49ers.
Yes.
But that would be a very, very good game for sure.
Oh, yeah. A lot of good games this season.
So the AFC now is really what we thought. So we've been saying all along, and I'll stick to it, that the AFC is really a two-team race between Buffalo and Kansas City. And now that both teams are tied in their records, and Buffalo owning the tiebreaker because they won the head-to-head, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of home field advantage. If you're Buffalo,
and the bye, you get a bye too.
You do, right? That is actually, that's a really good point, because that changed last year. The 1 seed gets a bye. It used to be the 1 and 2 get a bye. Now you can sit there and say to yourself, well, if the Chiefs finish 2 where they are now, they're going to play the 7 seed, and the 7 seed's not great. Sure, they can win, but you know what else can happen? You can have players get hurt in a game, and that could screw you out. So you want the 1 seed. And so aside from home field, you're right, Dougie Sticks, your football maven over there. You are right. The bye matters as well. So we'll see there kind of where that whole situation goes. Hopefully, if you're a Bills fan, you can hold serve. And for the Bills, they have their hardest game remaining on the schedule this weekend. They play this. The schedule makers got this right. They play under the lights, primetime Saturday night home versus the Dolphins.
What's with the Saturday night games? Why are there several Saturday games this week?
They start usually towards the end of the season. The last few weeks have some Saturday games. And then next week, actually, there's a lot of Saturday games because Christmas is the Sunday, and there's only like 1 or 2 games. So they put the majority of the games on the 24th. So the Bills' remaining schedule, they're home versus Miami. They are, I want to say I saw they were like a 7.5 point favorite, which to me is a lot of points, but we'll see on that. Then the Bills go to Chicago. That is not a tough game by any means. Then they got to play on the Bengals on the road. You never know about that one on Monday Night Football in Week 17. And then the last week they're home versus the Patriots. So if I compare it to the Chiefs schedule, let's see. All right, Dougie, I'm going to give you 4 Chiefs games. Tell me who wins. Chiefs at Texans.
Chiefs.
Seahawks at Chiefs.
Chiefs.
Broncos at Chiefs.
Chiefs.
Chiefs at Raiders.
Shit. Chiefs just won.
Chiefs just won out. Absolutely. That's my thought too. We're on the same page.
But if I'm the Chiefs, I do not want to play the Jets in the first round.
But I don't think that's their concern. Well, I don't know if I agree with you on that, but we'll see.
Why? The Jets are playing good, and like they're like feisty. So like you said, like you can get an injury. You could lose that game. The Jets beat the Bills.
Yeah, look, I mean, it can happen. I'm not saying it would be the upset of the century. If you're the Bills, though, you do have the harder schedule. And it starts this weekend versus Miami. It's probably, you know what I think will happen here? They'll beat Miami. They'll beat the Bears. The number 1 seed in the AFC is going to come down to that Bills game in Cincinnati on Monday Night Football on January 2nd. The Bills are going to have to win that to keep the 1 seed. And if they don't hold serve, they're going to get the 2 seed. And then they could be playing the Jets or the Patriots, right, who now hold the 7th seed. So we'll see. I mean, at least now you start to see and I feel like for this NFL season, it's taken more time than it normally does. You're starting to see the kind of cream of the crop, right? The cream of the teams that are really going to be there. Now in the NFC, you also have the Cowboys at 10-3. It'll be a very interesting playoffs, right? The Vikings as well. What's disgusting is the Buccaneers are 6-7 and they're leading their division and probably going to get a home playoff game with a losing record. The NFL needs to relook the way that they do the playoffs. If the Buccaneers are 6-7 and going to get a home playoff game, and the Cowboys are 10-3 in second place and going to be on the road, something is off with the system. Like, give the NHL credit, and obviously we cover the NHL a lot here. Give the NHL credit. About 10 years ago, or actually less than that now, they switched the whole format with the wild card, like 4 or 5 years ago, because the whole thing was screwed up. You had situations that didn't make sense. Hopefully, the NFL can say, look, you shouldn't be given an automatic home game for winning the division if your record is under 500. I mean, that makes no sense at all.
Well, the Buccaneers shouldn't be in the playoffs if you have like 5 other teams that have better records than them. And, don't get me started with the overtime rules. Like, keep playing quarters until you have a winner. If it's tied up at the end of overtime 1, you have overtime 2, you have overtime 3, you have overtime 4. Like eventually you will have a winner.
So the Giants Commanders game 2 weeks ago is a great example of that, right? It ended in a 20-20 tie, and all that tie really does right now is screw up both teams, right? I think both coaches, Ron Rivera and Brian Daboll, would probably sit here and say, I would have rather played that game and had a chance to win it, because a tie really just screws you both.
Yes.
I don't understand. They could do like what college football does, right? Where you start on the 25. There's plenty of different ways to get a winner.
Yes, but at the same time, I don't really just play.
I agree. I would agree with you. Just play.
Like it obviously it's a good game. Keep it going.
Someone will score. You will not be there forever. Yes. And TV ratings, as you get to overtime, for them, it probably bumps it up too, which is always a big thing for them. All right, so weekly picks. We went into last week at 10-3. We had another winning week, 11-3. Again, I'm going to just keep saying it. If you're not listening to us, I don't understand. What is it going to take? Had you listened to us from week 1, you would have made money 11 weeks. You would have lost money in 3. So that means the difference in winning versus losing weeks is 8 weeks. You would have had 8 weeks where you made money. I mean, I don't know why you're not listening to us. So last week, what did we have right? We had, let's see here. I am looking at the wrong stuff. Now, here we go. We had the Jaguars plus 3.5 at Tennessee. They won the game outright. I told you last week that the Titans stink, and they're one-dimensional with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had a good first half. Whatever adjustments Doug Peterson and Jacksonville did, they shut him down in the second half, and shocker, the rest of the team suffered as well. So we had that one right. We had the Bengals minus 5.5 at home versus the Browns. We had that right, and we had Denver plus 9.5 at home versus the Chiefs. The 2 we had wrong, as I mentioned, Tampa plus 3 at San Francisco, and we also had the Vikings minus 1 at Detroit wrong too. If you're a Viking fan, and I'm not necessarily calling you out, Paul Farrington, but if you're a Viking fan, you've got, if you're going to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender, I know Detroit is not a bad team at all. You've got to win that game. I mean, you can't sit here and expect to get respect to win the Super Bowl when you can't beat Detroit. I mean, I'm sorry, you just can't. So we finished 3-2 last week, 11-3 now on the season. Here are our week 15 picks for the Mind Your Pucking Business podcast. I like the Vikings minus 4 at home versus the Colts. The Colts are not good. Again, Jeff Saturday doesn't have coaching experience. The Vikings, you've got to find a way to win. You're annoyed after you lost to Detroit. Give me the Vikings minus 4 at home versus the Colts. Give me the Steelers plus 2.5 at the Panthers. The Panthers are a mess. They really are. And the Steelers have been competitive in games. So I'm taking the Steelers here plus 2.5 at Carolina. I like Tampa plus 3.5 at home versus Cincy. Again, Tampa situation, they need to win. They're fighting for playoff positioning. Plus, I'm getting Tom Brady off of a really bad loss, and I'm getting coverage of more than a field goal. Give me Tampa plus 3.5 at home versus Cincy. Give me the Chargers minus 3 at home versus Tennessee. I was totally impressed with the Chargers the other night versus Miami, and as I told you, I've been completely unimpressed with Tennessee. So minus 3 is not a lot to cover if you're a better team and you're home. Give me the Chargers minus 3 at home versus Tennessee. Last pick, struggled which one I wanted to do, but here we go. I'm going to take the Ravens plus 2.5 at Cleveland. I'm going to go on the notion here that Cleveland just can't find their blank from their blank, right? They just cannot find their way out of their mess. And the Ravens at 2.5 with a defense that's still pretty decent and some offensive guys that can play. Dobbins had a great game as a running back last week coming off the IR. Give me the Ravens plus 2.5 at Cleveland. So to recap, I like the Vikings minus 4 at home versus the Colts, the Steelers plus 2.5 at the Panthers, Tampa plus 3.5 at home versus Cincy, the Chargers minus 3 at home versus Tennessee, and last, the Baltimore on the road plus 2.5 at Cleveland.
Sounds good to me.
You like him? All right, let's look real quick before we go at the local spreads for the week. Now, we'll start with the bigger, well, they're both big games, but let's start with the Giants. Now, the Giants got flexed. Give the Giants credit. Whenever you can be the game that gets flexed into Sunday Night Football, you have done something right in the season, right? So they now go and they play the Commanders again Sunday night, this time down in Maryland. So the Giants right now are plus 4.5.
Yeah, I think they're going to win it. Got to bring the intensity. We gotta correct. I don't know what's going on in that locker room, but we gotta fix some mistakes. Like I like the coaching staff. I like where the season has been going, but there's like mistakes and some hiccups that we need to iron out. Like we can have a good attitude and we can go hard, but like you got to fix these little mistakes.
So I like the Giants plus 4.5 here. I don't know that they'll win, and I certainly wouldn't be surprised in the least if they did. But 4.5 seems like a lot for a game. It's kind of like a pick 'em to me. Like I wouldn't be surprised either way. I would take the points there at 4.5.
I mean, considering that they tied last time. Okay, you know what I mean?
Did. And
like, where are you getting these? Where are they getting these stats?
And the Giants had the lead in that game, most of it until late in the fourth when they tied it. So this line has moved. The Jets are +1, but I'm pretty sure if I remember, it opened -1. So the Jets are +1 at home versus Detroit. I will tell you that when I looked at the games I was picking, this I just find a very hard game to pick because you're picking on the money line, right? Because +1 is 1 point.
Mm-hmm.
I could easily see Detroit winning. They came into MetLife 3 weeks ago and beat the Giants. Mm-hmm. They're red hot. They've been playing really well. But the Jets need the game, and they're due for a good game after 2 games on the road. This is not an easy game to pick. What would you do?
I don't know. We don't even know who the quarterback is.
Well, I think it's Mike White. And I don't know that if you're I'm sure Jet fans would agree, you don't really want Zach Wilson. Also in the sense that, like, you don't want this guy having a good game and if you're going to go anywhere this year, it's with Mike White. I mean, I just don't see any scenario where Zach Wilson all of a sudden wakes up and gets it. Mm-hmm. So you want Mike White under center. I think from what I understand, he's playing. So what would you do? I struggle in this game to pick. +1. You're going with the Jets +1? If I had to pick, if this was a game I was picking, I would take the Jets because the Jets are still in the playoff. Well, Detroit is too, but the Jets have had 2 really bad, annoying losses on the road, Minnesota and Buffalo, the last 2 weeks. They're coming home. They really need the game. The crowd will be amped up. I would take the Jets, but that is a very hard game to pick.
I will tell you this. Detroit is a team that, if I'm not rooting for the Giants, the Jets, like, I like the coaching.
So
staff.
do I.
I'm rooting for them, but like, don't take long as it doesn't take away from the Jets and Giants.
I agree with you. I like Dan Campbell, and I told Paul Farrington when he was here in August, we did a preseason thing that I thought Detroit, the over/under was a joke, and it was. I should have bet on it because I'd be 1 win away. Yeah, I'm with you. I like Dan Campbell. I think the intensity there, and Detroit is so easy to root for because they're always terrible, right? I mean, I don't even know the last time they were in the playoffs. So they're easy to root for, but we will not be rooting for them this week as they play in MetLife versus the Jets. All right, that is a wrap from here. I hope we got in as much of your questions as I tried. Keep sending them in. You can send us questions at any time to mypbshow@gmail.com. You can use the Instagram feed as well at Mind Your Business. We do see them. If we do not answer them on the show, we do try to answer them directly on the Instagram platform via the DM method. We thank the Bamboozle Project as always for their sponsorship, and we also encourage you when you go on to the Bamboozle Project and you get your last minute Christmas gifts from Santa of your MYPB stuff, especially that winter hat. I keep promoting it. Yes. I encourage you to use the MYPB promo code to save yourself 25%.
Absolutely.
Any other things on your end, sir, before we wrap it up for another week?
No, big week in football, and go Giants, go Jets.
It is a big week. You will have next week, especially with the Giants playing the Commanders, you will have a much better grasp on if these teams are going to make the playoffs. Because if the Giants lose this week and then the Giants schedule the rest of the way, you still have to play the Eagles again, although the game may not mean a lot to the Eagles, but they have to go to the Vikings and they play the Colts at home who are not good. So if you figure you lose to the Commanders, the Viking game is very hard, and the Eagle game, who knows? Ugh. You need to win this week. Yeah. If the Giants are going to make the playoffs, you need to win this week. And if I'm the Jets, same sort of thing. Yeah. I don't know what I have. So that's a wrap for here. We appreciate you listening as always, and we will talk to you next time.